It started as a weekend visit, a simple custody arrangement between two divorced parents. Three sisters, Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia Decker, aged 9, 8, and 5, were scheduled to spend time with their father, Travis Decker, as part of their usual visitation schedule. Nothing about that Friday in late May 2025 suggested the horror that would soon unfold. The girl's mother, Jessica, had dropped them off with a tight smile and a hopeful heart. She had been anxious lately, unsettled by Travis's increasingly erratic behavior, but there was no legal basis to deny visitation. After all, no official red flags had been raised. Travis had no criminal record, no history of violence. But what lay hidden beneath the surface was far more dangerous than anyone imagined. That weekend, Travis didn't take the girls to his home. Instead, he packed their belongings and drove nearly 4 hours across Washington state to a remote campsite in Rock Island, a quiet, wooded area known more for its fishing spots than for tragedy. There was no cell signal, no neighbors nearby, just trees, silence, and the whispers of a father's unraveling mind. When Jessica didn't hear from her daughters by Sunday night, her unease turned to panic. Texts went unanswered. Calls went straight to voicemail. She contacted the police. At first, authorities treated it as a possible communication issue or a benign camping trip gone long. But Jessica knew something was wrong. The girls never ignored her messages. It was NT until Monday afternoon that the Douglas County Sheriff's office arrived at the Rock Island campground. What they discovered there would send shockwaves through the entire region and eventually up the chain to the FBI. Lying inside the tent were the lifeless bodies of all three sisters. Each child appeared to have died violently, though the full extent of their injuries was not immediately made public. There was no sign of Travis Decker. He was gone. The campground was hastily secured as a crime scene. FBI agents, called in due to the involvement of minors and the potential for a cross-state manhunt, were stunned by the brutality. Nothing in Decker's background had suggested he was capable of this. Interviews with neighbors painted him as a quiet, if somewhat distant, father. Co-workers recalled he kept to himself, often declined social invitations, and had taken time off recently, citing personal reasons, but none had imagined he could kill his own children. Jessica was inconsolable. When police told her the news, she collapsed. Friends described her as a mother destroyed, unable to comprehend how a man she had once trusted could take away everything she held dear. In the days that followed, public sympathy poured in. Candlelight vigils were held in the girls' memory. Schools lowered their flags. Grief spread quickly across Washington state, but alongside it came fury. How had this been allowed to happen? The FBI, now leading the manhunt, launched a full-scale search for Travis Decker. Surveillance footage from nearby gas stations and highway toll booths was scoured. A bolo alert was issued across multiple states. His face, once hidden in the background of his daughter's school events, was now broadcast nationwide. Despite the resources, Decker proved elusive. Investigators began to believe he had planned this for months. They discovered survival gear missing from his home, along with a rifle and ammunition. Bank records showed he had drained his savings. He had purchased prepaid phones and maps. This was no spontaneous act of madness. This was a plan. But what shocked investigators most wasn't just the planning, it was the motive. As FBI profiler Jenna Marquez put it, this wasn't about snapping under pressure. It was about control, about punishing the girl's mother in the most unimaginable way. They found notes on Decker's computer journal entries riddled with resentment, bitterness, and a toxic obsession with protecting his legacy. He wrote about feeling emasculated, about losing his identity after the divorce. He described the girls as being poisoned by Jessica. In one particularly haunting entry, dated just 2 weeks before the murders, he wrote, "If I can't be their father, no one will." As the investigation deepened, more disturbing details surfaced. Decker had spent months researching family annihilators, men who killed their families out of vengeance or desperation. He had bookmarked pages detailing how to evade capture in national parks. One file, chillingly titled "The Exit Plan," outlined steps for disappearing without a trace. Where to go, how to live off-grid, what to say if approached by law enforcement. This wasn't impulsive. It was strategic, and that's what horrified the FBI the most. Meanwhile, the public outcry grew louder. Critics questioned how family court had allowed visitation despite Jessica's concerns. Why hadn't mental evaluations been mandatory? Why weren't Decker's online writings flagged? Child safety advocates began calling for sweeping reforms to family law and custody protocols. Politicians responded with promises of legislation, but for Jessica, no law could bring her daughters back. 2 weeks after the murders, a hiker in Idaho reported a possible sighting of Decker near the Salmon Chally National Forest. He appeared disheveled, bearded, wearing camouflage. But by the time authorities arrived, he was gone again, leaving only a burned-out campfire and a scrap of canvas tent behind. The forest was searched for days with drones, dogs, and volunteer trackers. Nothing. Decker had vanished into the wilderness like a ghost. The FBI released an age-progressed rendering, anticipating how he might alter his appearance. A $100,000 reward was posted for information leading to his capture. Despite the manhunt becoming one of the largest in Washington state history, the trail ran cold. For the agents on the case, it was deeply personal now. You don't just walk away from this, one investigator said. We're going to find him. As the weeks turned to months, the national spotlight faded, but Jessica refused to give up. She began speaking publicly, not just about her daughters, but about the system that failed them. She created a foundation in their name, the Decker Sisters Foundation, to advocate for child safety in custody cases. Her speeches, raw and emotional, gained traction on social media. Parents from around the country reached out with stories of their own. Ignored red flags, dismissed concerns. Jessica had become the voice for a terrifyingly common problem when most people didn't acknowledge until it was too late. And still, Travis Decker remained out there. Occasionally, tips would trickle in. A man resembling Decker seen buying supplies in Oregon, a stranger asking for work under an alias in Montana, but none could be confirmed. The FBI's behavioral analysis unit continued to develop profiles, suggesting he may have dyed his hair, assumed a new identity, or even joined an off-grid community to avoid detection. They also warned he could be dangerous to others, particularly women who reminded him of his ex. The story took a haunting turn in late October 2025, when hikers near the Canadian border found a message scrawled on the underside of a bridge in permanent marker. It read, "You didn't protect them. I did what I had to." While it couldn't be definitively tied to Decker, the handwriting bore strong similarities to his known journals. The area was searched extensively, but once again, there was no trace. For many, the Decker case has become more than a tragedy. It's a symbol of something broken, a warning of what can happen when psychological red flags go unheeded. It's a story that law enforcement, mental health professionals, and families alike can't afford to forget. 3 innocent girls were lost, not because no one cared, but because the system wasn't built to act on the kind of quiet, subtle danger their father represented. And for the FBI, the case remains open. Travis Decker is still on their most wanted list. His face still appears in post offices, gas stations, and digital billboards across the Pacific Northwest. The manhunt hasn't ended. Every new lead is followed. Every cold trail is revisited, because somewhere out there, he's still running, still hiding. And until he's found, the haunting question remains. How far can a man go to escape justice after committing the unthinkable? Justice Fr. Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia isn't just about catching their killer. It's about making sure no child falls through the cracks again, and that's a story the world needs to hear.